If you've been following this channel for a while, or if you just follow Japanese content in general, then you might be familiar with this dropping rates of interest in relationships, romantic relationships, amongst especially young people in Japan. And I am one of them. Today I'm going to explain what is going on. Hi, if you're new to this channel, my name is Taiki. I am a native Japanese who shares the honest opinions, my opinions of Japanese culture and to what it's like to grow up as a Japanese person in Japan. So if you're interested in that, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. So I've seen some articles online explain the reasons why Japan is being loveless, especially Gen Z amongst Gen Z. I've heard the explanation that in Asian culture, in Eastern Asian culture, people, girls, are expected to stay at home and be housewives. So lots of men in Japan, for instance, expect the women to do that. So since people are having careers regardless of gender, some women don't feel comfortable marrying those types of patriarchal men, so they rather choose being single. Just because women don't want to be housewives, they don't want to get married. Is that the only reason, I wonder? So, one reason, the huge reason I can think of, is the economic situation. Japan is one of those countries that inflation, everything is happening and depression is happening, but at the same time, our wage don't get increased. We don't get a salary raise. Almost never. Even after like spending decades of working in company, there's no really much salary raise. But at the same time, because of the inflation, prices of cost of living are increasing. So it's kind of impossible to get married or to even go on a date. So I think I heard something like people who are like specifically men who are older than 30, and I think 60% of them have never been on a date or something in Japan. And I found that insane. And I talked about this before, but when the economy, when Japan specifically is in depression, they tend to raise the tax because of the fiscal law that the United States forced Japan to join, include that in the institutional institute, Japanese institute. So what basically means is that fiscal law, Article 4, I think that was 4, the US said you should raise a tax instead of lowering the cost of living when you're in depression to avoid Japan from getting money from the government, the governmental funds, because they were, I think, scared of Japan gaining power because Japan was crazy during war, the kamikaze and all that stuff. Japanese people are very scary. Japanese armies are very scary. So the United States didn't want Japan to gain war power, nuclear power, whatever power. But still, although the country signed the peace treaty, and it's been like ages. So anyway, Japanese people don't have the economic stability in general to support even one person. One person is like already enough. So that kind of explains. But I think there's more to it from my experience. which is I'm about to share with you. Allow me to tell you a story about Taiki. Okay, so Taiki was born in 1998. He was an odd kid. He was an autistic. He is an autistic kid. So he was kind of a loner. He always had been a loner. So he didn't really have many friends. Even if he did, he had a hard time communicating with them in general. So he would just play video games with them instead of going to going out to a park to play football or baseball because he sucked. Almost at any sport, he sucked. During kindergarten, he was like around with everyone. He didn't care because he was young enough. He was little enough not to care. He didn't even understand when about the world because he was so newly introduced to that planet, to Earth. But by the time he reaches the elementary, there's something odd happens. The girls started to avoid him. He didn't understand why. So when he got a textbook for school, and during a science class, he would have his textbook on the table, and there's a female classmate in front of him. She didn't even look at him in the eye because, like I said, he's autistic, and he was not the brightest kid necessarily in class. He's kind of quiet, loner, sort of kind of kid. When his textbook touched her textbook, she would take her textbook. What's it called? I don't know. I don't know English. Wipe it off or something. She would just to stick to wipe off for now. Just wipe off her textbook, as if his textbook, Taiki's textbook, was full of germs. If he was caught looking at, even just glancing at a female student, female classmate, she would say, "Ew." So he was confused. He was just looking at that direction where the girl happens to be. He didn't understand why, so he started to hate women. And when he said he hated women, his mother and his sister were like, "That's so offensive. Why? We are women." So he took that back. He only hated women at school. That traumatized him for life almost. But as he grew up, he got into bed, like some situation with a girl. He was very surprised when she didn't treat him like a germ. She actually kissed him. She actually stripped him. She actually, you know, held his hands. She wasn't Japanese. She was non-Japanese. So he started to wonder if Japanese girls hated him. But girls didn't really hate him in general. And then he started to gain confidence. He started to, talk to girls, and gradually he became less scared of women. When I told this story to, like, I don't know, some other men in Japan, surprisingly, they had similar experiences, being treated as germs, being treated like pests by girls. So that's something that I believe fundamental about the lack of intimacy, because men are so scared of intimacy. in Japan because you know I was little, right? I was little. I was like purely like didn't understand anything. I wasn't like molesting girls or something. I was just looking at a girl in class. I wasn't even like staring at her creepily. Like I said, like she happened to be in my direction, and she thought I was staring at her funnily. And the textbook example, the one my textbook touched the another girl's textbook, that was traumatizing. Also, the educational system in Japan separates girls and boys. So when I lived in Canada, when I was 15, I was so surprised that there was a PE class that made us dance, like a social dance, the men and girls, right? Boys and girls. So I danced with a girl for the first time ever in my life. Probably the first time ever I held the hand of a girl. So I saw something that's fundamentally different. Anyways, that was a story that I could tell you. And, lots of people say the external reasons why Japanese people are not getting married, but I think there's more innate thing that's going on underneath this whole thing that boys are traumatized by the girls in Japan. This is different if you're good looking. If you're a Japanese boy, but if you're good looking, you have a different story. You will not treat it as a germ, like me. Or if I was good looking, she would actually smile. If I was looking at this direction, if she happens to be there, she would actually smile. And I think the virgins, which is a lot in Japan, have just traumatized for life from that childhood experience. And they didn't have a chance. They weren't as lucky as I was to, have sex or something with a girl because they were traumatized, and I understand like what they're feeling because of that experience. They are scared of like coming near like a girl and stuff. My guess is like even if the economy was doing great, Japan would still have like this problem. I thought I would share this with you because nobody really talked about this before. So, anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of these videos that I talk about Japanese culture. And as always, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time.